actually going to be live.
It's live. Jake, it's live.
We're live. Hey, look at that. I was waiting for a notification on my screen. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hughes Sports Podcast for November 13th. I am your host, Jake Hughes. Alongside me, the old man. Old man, how the hell are you doing now that we've got some technical issues out of the way?
I'm panicking. That's what you told me to do. I asked you
what to do. Panic. Everything breaks, we panic.
I don't see it live on YouTube yet.
It is live on YouTube for me.
Is it?
Yep.
Under Hughes Sports Podcast?
Under the same one we've gone live to for 40 odd weeks now.
It says 2 people waiting.
You guys, people might be waiting in the wrong room because we had to make a new link for everything. So what I'm doing while we're filling time here, not talking sports and talking things, is going to go in and we have the one live, and I'm going to delete that one.
That's funny because I can't see the live one. I'm gonna get out of there.
Live now. So if you go to our Hughes Sports Podcast, if you're watching this, thank you so much for watching.
So Jake told me to panic,
and he panicked very well. We were ready to go. We were ready to go. We were.
Oh look, we're live.
Yeah, look at that.
Look at that. Okay. Whew.
Things might look a little different than normal. That is because things are different than normal, because the normal platform we use to stream to decided to just kick us all out and destroy everything about 30 seconds before we were about to go live. So now that we've got all that figured out.
And everything looked good.
Everything's fine. Everything's great. What do you want to start talking sports now, or are we still in panic mode?
Oh, we talking sports? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, that is what we're doing.
Oh, cool. Okay. I got to find Zoom again. I lost my Zoom.
You don't need to see me. You can hear me. You can hear me. You don't need to see me.
I need to see you and hear you because you're so pretty.
Oh, thank you.
How is everybody doing? What a week. What a start.
What a start. What a week. What a week it's been. The Canucks are off to a beautiful start. 15 games in. Double digits in victories. The best start to a Vancouver Canucks season ever in the history of me being alive, of the old man watching hockey. I'm pointing the wrong way now because things are not the right way. It's all a mess now. It's all a mess. But yeah, let's talk about the Canucks first, because I want to leave the sad, upsetting news for the end of the show.
Well, yeah, it's unfortunate. We were supposed to have Harman Dayal on the show today, but I messaged him on Twitter, talked to him last night on Twitter, and he said he was going to log on, and now he is not there. So I don't know what happened. So hopefully we can reschedule Mr. Harman Dayal for another week.
So you guys are just gonna have to deal with the irrational. Yeah, I was gonna say, of all weeks for technical issues to happen, of course it was this week.
Yes.
But yeah,
why wouldn't it be? About these?
Well, because we had a guest planned and everything was ready to go. I was prepared, and then a nuclear meltdown at Mission Control, and we're back to using archaic technologies.
Well, it's not archaic.
For what we're used to, it is. We don't have any backgrounds. We don't have our normal things happening.
True story.
So, let's talk about these Canucks.
My goodness, are they not on fire? Seriously.
They are
it's just fun. Again, it's just fucking fun.
The best start to a Canucks season ever. And I'm still waiting. I know it's terrible, but it's the Canucks fan in me to my core that I'm waiting for the wheels to fall off. I'm waiting for an explosion of disasters.
We're in uncharted waters now.
It's true. There's no 54 goals in the last 12 games. 54 goals in 12 games.
It's asinine.
There's no words to use around it, because it's
Well, last time I looked at the scoring leaders, we had 3 Canucks in the top 5.
Let's see.
I don't know if that's still the case, but we have
3 in the top 5.
there.
Yeah, we have 3 in the top 5. We have Elias Pettersson, who is leading the league with 25 points. We have JT Miller, who is in third with 23 points. Oh, and we have a defenseman named Quinn Hughes also tied for third with 23 points.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like we've gotten that, but then there's also Brock Besser's been firing on all cylinders. Our defense, it's hard to talk about because I don't know where to start, but everything looks good.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, what do you talk about? Sorry, I'm trying to keep my eye on the chat as well, because we normally in our fancy system, all the chats show up in one spot. That's not happening tonight.
Yes, Ron, there were some technical issues. I appreciate you finding us. There's all sorts of chaos been happening today, so appreciate you checking us out.
It's like the Chaos Giraffe. We were talking about that off air. Chaos Giraffe.
Chaos Giraffe, but he hasn't lived up to that name. There's been 1 or 2 games that he was typical Chaos Giraffe.
The beginning of the season more so, I thought he was a little chaosy. Chaosy, yeah. That's my new word for the night.
All right.
I don't think he's been that horrible.
He's been great. Again, he's overpaid for the position that he's playing as a third line or a third pairing defenseman.
Yeah.
But he's been playing fantastic. Like it's hard to shit on him like we normally do when the team's doing as well as we are. He's doing perfectly fine. Like, it's not like, despite of our third pairing, we're succeeding.
Yeah, exactly. No, I thought, you know what? I can't complain about him. There's not much to complain about this entire team. It's I think last week I said if they can go 2-3 on this Eastern road trip, I'd be quite happy. I'm not sure if I got them all in the correct order. I did say they were going to beat Ottawa. I wasn't sure if I said they were going to lose to Toronto and win in Montreal, or win Montreal, or win in Toronto and lose in Montreal.
You were really stuck on that one.
Yeah, but I did say 3. They're going to get 2 wins out of the 3, which was correct.
Correct.
So 2 weeks in a row now, I'm 100%. The medium.
Let's keep it going.
The medium has got it right.
Well, they don't call you Kevin the Medium for giggles and shits.
Or shits and giggles.
Or giggles and shits.
So next, let's talk about the big news. Let's talk about the big news surrounding the Canucks right now. And really, it has to do with our hometown team, the Calgary Flames, being
an atrocious team, and apparently it wasn't Daryl Sutter, it was the team. But who would have guessed that?
Who would have guessed that? But who was it that came out? There was somebody that came out. Zadorov? No.
Zadorov, yeah.
Zadorov came out and just blatantly through his agent said, I want out.
Which I don't like. It's hard to blame any player who wants out.
It's a disaster.
Calgary right now. It's a disastrous couple of years.
Yes.
You're playing in a city that isn't great. Like, I don't want to bash the city that I live in, but if anyone's going to, I'm going to. It's not a Vancouver. It's not a Toronto.
No.
It's not a Montreal for the fan base. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
There are few and far between of diehard Flames fans. There are a lot of loyal Flame fans who will watch games, but there's not the fan base like we've seen with the Canucks over the last however many years, that despite a 20-year losing streak, it's felt like people still care and they're asking questions about the team.
I always question that when you say a 20-year losing streak. And I'm like,
wasn't quite that. It wasn't that long. It was
pretty close.
No. I mean, 12 years ago, we were in the Stanley Cup final.
Oh, yeah. Right. Good. Math is hard.
Math is hard. It's okay, guys. He went from panic mode back into not panic mode. So
I'm trying to bring all my energy back focused so we can actually pull this stuff off.
Well, and it's hard because normally I have the rundown ahead of me, like on my screen that I'm looking at. I'm talking with you, and I'm like, oh, I know where we're going next. I have no clue where we're going next right now. So, but yeah, the news out of Calgary is a bunch of their UFAs want out. And I mean,
and they want out now.
Well, and Conroy and the team realize that they've almost played themselves out of a playoff spot already.
Yes.
So why not sell guys while they still have value?
Well, exactly, right? Why not?
And Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick have talked about it. There's been a lot of talk surrounding it, but there hasn't been a lot of action needs to be done right this second.
Yes.
From the Flames head office, which is good. You don't want to make a hasty trade just to make a trade to change something up.
Yeah.
Unless you're the Canucks and you're trying to take advantage of the Flames trying to make a quick trade. It would have been nice to be able to pick up 10 of virtually nothing. But that, as the weeks have gone on...
Which brings us to how this is associated to the Canucks. I have to eat some crow.
He does?
Because Jake brought this up 2 weeks ago? Week ago?
Two or 3 weeks ago, I think.
It was a while back. And I laughed at him.
He literally told me that there's no way Calgary would trade Tanev.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna have to answer this text. It's our guest.
Oh, okay.
You continue.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, look, like Calgary is imploding. Rumors are on the street that they're looking to make a move or change something up. Bringing Tanev home only makes sense. We need another top 4 defenseman. Not that our defense hasn't been holding up, but bringing in another top 4 defenseman really solidifies your defense. You have Tyler Myers playing top 6 or bottom pairing at minutes. You've got Hronek and Hughes holding it down. Cole and Soucy filling their roles perfectly, and then you just seem to have a Mark Friedman, a Noah Juleson, a guy who's kind of would be a great 7th defenseman on a great team.
Yes, exactly.
And if the Canucks are looking to make that next step from being we want to make the playoffs to we want to be a playoff contender or a Stanley Cup contender, this is the type of move that they'd want to make.
Yes.
Because bringing in a Tanev who we know has incredible chemistry with Quinn Hughes could allow Hronek to play second line, and now we've got a true top 2 pairs on defense.
Which just would be amazing. And like I was saying before I was distracted, I didn't think this would ever happen, to be blunt. Now everybody's talking about it. So it just might happen. It just might. We might see it in the next week. That
I still don't think it's going to happen that quickly. I think it's going to take a little. I think it's still going to take a little bit of time because it's a complicated situation with so many teams being as close to the cap as they are.
Yeah,
you can't. It's not like the Canucks could just trade a 2nd round pick if they had one this year for Tanev.
Right.
You have to be trading cap for cap. And what does Calgary want? What does Calgary need in a situation like this? What does Vancouver need to make the cap situation work?
Right. You need to pay attention just in case you get a notification that somebody's in the waiting room. Just giving you a heads up.
I have that notification that just popped up right now. So, wow. Without further ado, we're going to bring in our guest. He is a NHL and Vancouver writer on The Athletic. He is also co-host of the Canucks Conversation. Our guest, and we're very, very happy to have him on the show, one Harman Dayal. Despite all of our technical issues, we were able to get you on the show. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. And my apologies. I was troubleshooting Wi-Fi and TV problems, and then checked the clock and had totally lost track of time. So my apologies about that.
No
No
problem. It
worries.
seems to be an issue tonight with Wi-Fi, and usually we go live like you got the link for Restream, but 30 seconds before we went live, Restream decided to shut down.
Unbelievable.
Just perfect timing. It was perfect. Literally, I was like, all right, so we're gonna get ready to go, and all of a sudden said, oh no, you've been disconnected. It's like, great, thanks. So I appreciate you being nimble and being able to jump on the Zoom call with us.
No, of course.
First off, I just want to say, yeah, thank you for taking the time to chat with us. What have been your biggest surprises of the Canucks season so far? Because for us, everything's just been astoundingly positive.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest surprise is that seemingly everything has gone right. I
Yes.
think when you go into a season, you sort of map out different possibilities of how the season could go, and you don't ever really expect everything to go exactly how you would have hoped. And that's what it's been, right? The goaltending has bounced back with Thatcher Demko looking phenomenal, but also Casey DeSmith providing a sizable upgrade as the backup compared to Spencer Martin and Colin Delia last year. So that has
Huge.
set a heck of a foundation. On top of that, you have Pedersen and Hughes continuing to level up. JT Miller has bounced back in a huge way compared to especially his first 50 games under Bruce Boudreau last year was just massively struggling defensively. Lots of turnovers, lots of problems in his own end. And yet now he's been shutting down Connor McDavid already 3 times this season, consistently going up against top lines, in addition to some elite point totals offensively as well. I mean, Philip Hronek has been a great fit next to Quinn Hughes on the top pair, really rounding out the sort of top of Vancouver's blue line. You have somebody like Phil DiGiuseppe, I mean, who before last season was this fringe AHL, NHL tweener, and now he's a full-time top six NHLer. Brock Besser bouncing back, and I think he's already up to 12 goals now, which is unbelievable. I mean, just pick a spot of Vancouver's lineup, and it's been a positive. That's totally unexpected in terms of everything going Vancouver's way.
Yeah, and it's been wild. And I was just talking before you jumped on here that I'm waiting for that moment for things to just fall apart, whether it be an injury or something, because that's what the Canucks have been for the last 10 years.
Yeah, this is where, especially because the Canucks have built up such a strong early cushion in the Western Conference playoff
Yes.
race, especially when you combine it with Calgary getting off to a really bad start, Seattle starting slow out of the gate, even a team in the Central like Minnesota that you would have looked at typically as a playoff lock, really struggling in the early going. It gives Vancouver such a head start on making the playoffs that I think when you look at the foundation that this team has with its goaltending, with the star power at the top of the lineup, um, significantly improved penalty kill, a power play that looks deadly, even though at some point this club's going to run into adversity, even though at some point injuries are going to strike or you're going to have certain players come back down to earth, it feels like there's enough of a baseline sort of talent here, especially considering the structure and improved defensive habits Rick Tocchet has been able to implement with this group, that this is, to me, looks like a team that I'd be surprised if the bottom totally falls out on this group and they're in crisis mode again. But then again, it's the Canucks. So I think a lot of people, as optimistic as they are in Vancouver about this finally being a year that things are getting back on track, there's always that 5% of you in the back of your head that is well aware that things can quickly go wrong too.
I have been watching the Canucks since day one. I was 6 years old, sitting in my basement, 1970, watching that very first game. So I am expecting it's one of those, okay, hold my breath. This is good, but if you could pick one thing, what do you think is the one thing that this team is missing right now? If there was one piece of the puzzle, where do you think that would be?
For me, it'd be another top four right-handed defenseman. I think when you look at Tyler Myers on a contending team, he'd probably slot. I shouldn't say probably. Definitively, he would slot on your third pair. He wouldn't be sniffing top 4 minutes, especially at this stage of his career. And his minutes have been trimmed a little bit. He was close to averaging 21 minutes per night last year, whereas now he's closer to the 17.5-minute mark. So the coaching staff has been able to shelter his usage a little bit, but it's still not an ideal situation, especially when you look at the next man up has either been Mark Friedman, who's been quietly solid, but again, he's more of a 6'7" type defenseman, or Noah Juleson, who slotted in for the game against Montreal. You really only have Filip Hronek as a right side top four established defenseman, and that means you're a little bit thin there. If Hronek starts struggling or if he gets hurt, that's an area where, whether it's in the short term or more of a long term answer that you're looking for, that's definitely the biggest area I look at as an area to upgrade.
Well, and that brings us to, I mean, both we live out in Calgary, moved out here 20 plus years ago now, and still obviously huge Canuck fans. Big talk out here is Tanev. What do you think the chances are Tanev returns?
So here's the thing. I love Chris Tanev, but at this stage in his career, especially considering the potential acquisition cost and how expensive that would be, I just don't know if I love the idea of Vancouver going after a pending UFA like that. It just feels a little bit too early, even though hockey-wise, I think it's a perfect fit, right? Right shot, stay-at-home defenseman.
Yeah.
Gives you many different options, right? You could plug and play with Hughes, or he could help sort of stabilize your second pair. I love the fit from that standpoint. And look, if he hits the July 1 market and you're looking at a scenario where the term is reasonable, I'd absolutely be kicking the tires on a potential reunion there. But I just fear when you look at the types of prices that top four defensemen go for as rentals, and usually they command a first-round pick. Maybe Tanev costs a little bit less than that, but he's still going to cost you a significant premium. And unless there's a guarantee there of being able to extend him along with the initial acquisition cost, it just feels like the Canucks, they're already, I believe, missing their second-round pick this year. They're already without their third-round pick next year. They don't have a lot of expendable assets to be giving up rentals. So that would be my concern, even though I really like the fit from an on-ice perspective.
Great answer. Because out here, and Jake, you can back it up, like that's all we're hearing is Tanev to either Toronto or Vancouver.
Well, and then this past Saturday, I guess, as per Elliot Friedman, the Toronto-Calgary game, someone on the ice told Zadorov that he'd be a great fit in Toronto and that it's a player that they really need. So continuing fueling that narrative of Zadorov to Toronto, which is interesting. But you're talking about the acquisition cost for Tanev being high. What like you were saying, probably not a first round pick, but in a situation where cap space is so tight, are you expecting a lot of trades coming through this season? Because last couple of years, it seems like it's been hard to get any real big moves done when it comes to making a trade.
Yeah, again, I'm right with you. I think the flat cap and how many teams are right up against the ceiling does make it really complicated to make moves. I mean, you look at a team like Vancouver as well. We're talking about Tanev, or even earlier there have been sort of rumors about somebody like Zadorov. The Canucks can't afford a piece like that unless they're sending a contract back, and it just makes the logistical process a bit more complicated. I think I'm expecting, in general, quiet trade deadline, just because I don't think there are too many high-profile players, outside of the ones on Calgary, and if they have a fire sale, that look like they're going to be available. It just sort of feels like there aren't a ton of star names potentially available, and so just initially looking at it, I'm not expecting a whole lot of. I mean, look, trade deadline, you're going to have a lot of depth moves. You're going to have, I think creativity involved. It's going to be sort of required in terms of third teams, extra retention. And third-party brokers is what we heard a lot of at last year's trade deadline, and I expect that sort of trend to continue. But yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting a whole lot of huge earth-shattering type trades at the deadline. It just feels like those types of moves are usually better reserved for the offseason when teams have some more cap flexibility to work around. And that's when you see guys like DeBrincat and Eric Carlson and Pierre-Luc Dubois, those types of names really start to move as an example last summer.
Makes total sense. Jake, go ahead.
My big thing looking at the Canucks stats, and it's something I like to do because I'm a stats nerd when it comes to things, is their shooting percentage. Their shooting percentage, and I've been banging this drum for probably 2 or 3 weeks now. It's eventually going to come back down to earth. And following PDO, we're at last I checked, it was 107 or 108, which is higher, right? It's always eventually going to come down to 100 in the long term, more than likely. Where do you think that is when that comes back down to earth? Is that going to change how the Canucks are playing, or do you believe that the structure that Tocchet has put in is going to be successful despite not being able to score 10 goals on one team or 8 goals against the Oilers even?
Well, the key is sort of what you mentioned in terms of the blowouts, right? When they've been winning so far, they've had a lot of games where they've crushed teams, right? We've seen the 8-1 against Edmonton, the more recent 6-2 against Edmonton, the 10-1 against San Jose, 5-0 on St. Louis. I think the reason I'm not too worried about the inevitable sort of, PDO and sort of regression from that standpoint and the goal slowing down is because they've been winning by such wide margins. And I think their goal differential to start the season was historic. I mean, I saw a stat a week ago that it was the best since the mid-'80s Oilers. So, of course, we know that the Canucks aren't the mid-'80s dynasty cup-winning Oilers. So, of course, they're going to come back down to earth, right? And the point there is that they have margin to sort of fall back on so that, okay, now instead of winning games by multiple goals every time, now those games are going to be tighter, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be losing all of those games. And I think if you look at the team's PDO, once you exclude those blowout wins, it returns to a lot more of sustainable sort of ground. I think 103 or so, which is still high. It's still overheated, but definitely a lot closer to what is sustainable long term than 108. So yes, they're going to slow down offensively, especially at even strength. But I think there's enough here to be able to weather the storm.
Fair. Now, two-part question. Your expectations prior to the season starting obviously would have changed 15 games in with the start we've had. What was your expectation? What were you thinking would have been a success preseason compared to now?
Before the season, I looked at the Canucks as having roughly 50-50 playoff odds, maybe a little bit below 50-50 in my books. I saw question marks on the blue line. I wasn't sure about, of course, this was before the dismissed trade, the backup goaltending situation, especially because Demko hasn't had the best track record in terms of his health. And so you sort of had some concern related to that. Obviously now with the start they've had, I'm expecting them to make the playoffs. Anything short of that would be an epic failure, an epic catastrophe from this standpoint.
Yeah.
And in terms of when they get there, I'm still in wait and see mode in terms of understanding where this team is at, because they've wildly exceeded my expectations in the early going. But once we're closer to the halfway point of the season, or even closer to the trade deadline, that's when I'll have a much better sense, I think, on, okay, everything has gone right for this team through the first 15 games or so. Now, after 35, 40 games, how many of those pieces are still in place? Once adversity is hit, once injuries have struck, once things have gone against you for a little while and you've run into, let's say, a 3-game losing streak, that's, I think, when you'll get a much better grasp on, okay, is this just a team that gets in the playoffs and they're one and done, or are they a team that, okay, can legit make some noise once, if and when they qualify? That's something that I'm waiting for a larger sample to emerge, especially when it comes to the underlying data. I think a lot of people outside of Vancouver, especially stats inclined folk, are really skeptical about the Canucks, and they're citing statistics such as the Canucks' lackluster ability to control 5-on-5 expected goals. But there are other indicators like 5-on-5 shot attempts, where the Canucks have been just outside of the top 10 in the NHL at controlling shot volume, which is a positive indicator. And those are the types of wonky sort of disparities where, you know, one even strength metric really likes you and one really hates you, that once you've got a much larger sample, though, you'll have a much clearer idea of what you can trust, what you can't trust. The PDO mirage will have sort of settled. So for me, I'm still in wait and see mode, especially if this team ends up sort of adding pieces along the way, right? Whether it's an Ethan Bear, bringing him back, signing him once he's healthy, or making any types of moves around closer to the trade deadline. I think there's still a ways to go in terms of, at least me honestly understanding where this team is at.
Well, and it's so wild because, again, we've seen this team and they make the let's win now moves, and we always roll our eyes, and it's like, we'll get there. And then this season, I feel like it was finally a step back where fans and media alike were like, we'll see what happens. Like there's seems to be structure being implemented from the very top all the way down, and they come out and they start winning like we've wanted them to win for the last 10 years. So it's just really nice to be able to have that breath of air for Canucks fans.
For the players too, I can tell you this is a core that whether it's Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, those Brock Besser, those guys that have been here for a while, Thatcher Demko you can include as well, they're sick of year in, year out, the same story of not being able to get out of October or the first month of the season in general, but their playoff odds still intact. This is a team that I think understands that, look, at a certain point, you can talk about potential and how many good young players you have only for so long before it's time to actually deliver results. And I think there was definitely a feeling that, look, this is a make or break year for this team. And I think the players themselves sort of understood that. So it's, I think, been a sort of relief for them too, to finally get back on track and leave a lot of the negative storylines behind.
You mentioned Ethan Bear. What is his status? Will he be back this season?
Yeah, it sounds like he, according to his agents and whatever we've sort of seen online, sounds like he should be back and healthy from his shoulder injury around sometime in December, maybe the latter half of it.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, he's not too far away from being able to play. Maybe it takes him some time to really get back up to speed, in terms of, it's not only your injury, but okay, you've missed a lot of game time and everybody else is in midseason form. So it might take him some time to get back up to speed, and then even when he returns, to shake off the rust. But he definitely seems to be targeting a midseason return.
Now, with a player like that, if you were to sign him, could you assign him to the AHL in a conditioning stint to get him up to game speed? Is that something that's available to the Canucks?
It's a really good question. I truthfully don't recall the exact CBA terminology around sort of conditioning stints. So I'm, especially because he hasn't signed yet. That's one thing that I'm not sure how it affects whether you can send him on a conditioning stint right away. So yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you. I honestly don't know.
No, that's fair. That's just something, as I was thinking about, like how you get players up to speed, it's go for a conditioning stint. But can you do that? Or is it, because there are a lot of wonky things in the CBA that makes it very hard for teams to circumvent different things. So
we won't keep you much longer. I have a question. You look so dang young. How did you end up getting to where you are? I know a lot of other podcasters are watching tonight or will be listening down the road. How did you get so successful so quickly at your young age? If you don't mind me asking that question.
Yeah, of course. I started blogging when I was really young. So I did it right through high school, and I was able to sort of build up, some traction on Twitter that way. I was really active on Canucks Twitter. And I think that's the power of social media today is you can start writing, you can start podcasting, and you can just sort of build an audience sort of that way, do it gradually. You don't necessarily have barriers standing in your way from being able to start. Anybody can begin. And I think that was sort of the key to doing it. And I was also really fortunate to have mentors along the way that gave me opportunity, that took me under their wing. Jason Botchford, of course, was huge in sort of being one of the first mainstream media members to shout out a lot of my work. And I remember when I first started freelancing with The Athletic, he really went to bat for me. And I think a lot of Canucks fans started to get to know me through him mentioning me on whether it was the Patcast or his radio hits on 1040, even in his Athletics. And that sort of exposure from somebody who already had such a large audience was massive and sort of helping me get my foot in the door. And then from there, I just stayed persistent with it. I'm really fortunate that The Athletic, first gave me that initial opportunity as a freelancer, and then continued to sort of bet on me along the way. But really, I think the key has been starting early, like not worrying about, am I qualified to begin starting to produce content or not? Just start. Nobody's content is going to be great in the beginning. You're going to get a lot better as you gain more reps. And the only way you're going to improve is by getting experience. It's not necessarily going to be from consuming other people's content. It's going to be from creating on your own. And then once you sort of learn how to, I think, distinguish your content a little bit, that's how you can gain an audience, right? I carved out a niche for me at the time with analytics, and really being able to dive into that, especially because I was around a time when Canucks Army, before I'd started blogging a lot, had a lot of that sort of stuff, but a bunch of their writers had been poached by NHL teams. So there was a little bit of a hole in that market for analytical content. And I think I was able to differentiate myself a little bit that way. And that was another key, I think, to being able to gain some traction. But it was a lot of things. It was being consistent with it. It was starting early. It was carving out that niche, and then being really fortunate to have mentors take me under their wing.
That's cool. So it really means something when you said you started early, and I was like, well, yeah, you're young. But when you said you started in high school, and how old are you now? 23?
23.
23. So you're not new at this. You've been doing it for quite a while.
Yeah, I started, I mean, it's actually kind of embarrassing. I see some of the archived old articles from when Daily Hive used to be Vancity Buzz. And yeah, I was like 14, not writing very often, but I was still writing. That's again when I sort of say that beginning content, nobody's is going to be good. I mean, you even hear musical artists, you hear some of their work when they started really young, and so the biggest artists today, I mean, you'll never believe what they sounded like earlier. So don't let that fear, I think, hold you back. And then, yeah, especially I think when I was 17, my last year of high school was when I really committed to, okay, I'm going to blog weekly. And that's, I think, when I made the real big step in terms of, okay, now I'm getting a lot more traction, and I feel like I'm making rapid improvement and actually getting somewhere with this.
Well, you sound like a old veteran when I listen to you. I'm around veterans in broadcasting every day in my other job who have been on radio for 35 years, and they hold nothing to you. So good on you, buddy. Good on you.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's a perfect spot to leave it. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time and coming on our podcast to discuss things. Canucks Convo is where people can listen to you on a podcast if they want to read your writing on The Athletic, I believe, as well as Canucks Army.
I don't write on Canucks Army, just the podcast.
Don't write for Canucks, just podcast there.
Awesome. Well,
thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming
Talk to you later.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Cheers. Awesome, guys. That was Harman Dayal. That was cool, Jake.
Yeah, I told you. Very sharp mind, very analytically in depth, and is 23. Like
it's insane. And like I was saying at the end there, I had to get into that and ask him that question about how he got his start, because I'm listening to him. And as most people know that have watched us, I work with Rod Peterson, who's 40 years in the business. And that guy's can hold his own against a Rod Peterson, a Darren DuPont. I mean, and I've listened to a lot of guests come on their show that don't talk half as good as that kid does. And I'd say kid, and with all due respect, he's 23. Like he's a young guy.
He's a veteran in the business, but he's only 23.
Yeah. Like I'm looking forward to seeing his growth. I could actually hear him calling games. Like he had that really calming voice that just, you wanted to hear what he had to say.
If he wants to, I'm sure that door eventually will open for him, because
what did everybody else think? I know we're up on YouTube here. I've kind of lost my
I have lost my chat as well. So
you said Ron Reihold, another old guy like me, says, I wonder if he has ever heard of Jim Robson.
I would hope he had heard of Jim Robson.
Awesome.
Probably never actually listened to Jim Robson call a game, but
yeah. That's funny.
So,
that went longer than I thought it would.
Before we jump into the CFL news, Canucks have 3 games this week.
Yes.
They play Bo Horvat and the Islanders on Wednesday. They come into
second time Bo's been back. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, this will be the first time he's been back.
Oh, I thought it was the second. Somebody told me it was the second time.
No, we went to the Islanders to New York right after the trade and played them. So it's the second time he's played the Canucks, but the first time he's been back in Vancouver.
What do you think what do you think what do you think the reaction is going to be to Bo coming back? Are they going to boo him?
I think you're going to hear a smattering of boos.
Does he deserve that?
No.
With the comments he made?
No. Not even close. This guy was
disparaging comments.
He made one comment that was taken out of context. And this guy was the most professional captain that we could have had for however many years he was with the organization, during the worst stretch of time during this organization, where he was thrown out in front of the media.
Got him going.
And you're going to
lit
boo
a fire under him.
And you're going to boo him. Fans, if you boo him, if you're at the game on Wednesday and you boo, you're the problem. You're the problem with the way Canucks fans get treated in the general population of media.
I want to argue with you, but 100% agree. The best captain we've had in modern time.
Do I think players should take a couple shots at him and play him hard into the boards a couple times? Yeah, hell yeah. Because that's going to get a pop out of the audience, and they're going to make noise for that. But should he get booed? No. Will he? A smattering.
Yeah. So, okay.
So we have that game on Wednesday.
Yeah.
We have on Thursday a game in Calgary against the Flames. And then we have a game on Saturday against the Kraken. What are your predictions?
Literally go 3-0.
Yeah.
The only one I'm worried about is the Islanders. And I only say that because I haven't followed to see how well they've been playing.
Yep. No, the Kraken game should be good as well.
Kraken's off to, like Harman was saying, they're off to a slower start than expected.
Yes. But I still think they're an okay team.
Oh, yeah.
Islanders are 5-5-3, so they're off to a bit of a slower start as well.
I'm gonna go out on the limb. Here I go. The medium's making a prediction. We have to have sound effects.
Yeah, in our generic Zoom meeting out to the internet.
I'm going to go 3-0.
You're going 3-0. I'm going to go 2-0-1. I say because there is a back-to-back on Wednesday, Thursday with Islanders and Flames. So I'm going to say 2-0-1. I say one of those games is going to go into overtime.
We play the Islanders, then fly to Calgary and play the Flames the next day.
Correct.
That seems unfair.
Welcome to Vancouver's travel schedule. Till the Kraken arrived, we had no geographical rival and had most distance flown every single year.
Yeah, true enough, right?
But enough of Canucks talk, which is a really great show on Sportsnet if you guys want to catch it with Thomas Drance and Jamie Dodd. Deep plug for them because I really enjoy the way they discuss things. Let's talk about the CFL because we had
a weird Saturday it was.
We had a wild Saturday in football, and we had the Alouettes going into Toronto and winning by a score of 38-17.
I had a good friend of mine, Mr. Rod Peterson, actually on the air say a team quarterbacked by God couldn't beat the Toronto.
But then he also goes out and says death taxes and Cody Fajardo winning.
Now let's be realistic here. Cody didn't do much on this game.
Didn't have to. The Alouettes defense just decided to show up and were insane.
10 turnovers, 50 turnovers. How many turnovers was there that game?
There's a shot. We were watching the game together. There was a shot of Kelly after one of the turnovers where both of us were like, "You need to pull him. You need to." He looked like he was shell shocked.
He was done. I've never seen such a talented quarterback. I've never seen such a talented player lay an egg in the biggest game like that. I mean, I'm sure there's been bigger upsets, not in modern time.
I was gonna say not in the last 10 years, anyways.
Toronto was 16-2. Kelly was undefeated for games he started.
And you can't put the blame on Kelly's feet here. To me, that was 100% the Alouettes defense turning up and saying, our game.
I've never seen anything like it. Like, what was it? I think there was 4 interceptions, 3 turnovers on downs, and 1 fumble. Or something like that. It was really high. It was like insanity.
Yeah.
So Montreal, Cody Fajardo, who was run out of Saskatchewan last season, literally booed off the field. Rider fan, how does that feel? That must hurt just a little, eh? That's got to just burn in the belly just a little, just a tad. There's so much problems in Saskatchewan.
Are they worse off? And this might sound crazy. Are they worse off than Edmonton?
Oh, yes. At least in Edmonton, you've got the organization behind the team is somewhat stable and somewhat coherent. The organization, and I use the word organization because both teams are owned by the community. How do you say that? They've got a board of directors.
Yeah.
They don't have a single owner like BC does. But one organization, they have their poop together. The other organization, and I know I've heard so many behind the scenes stories, obviously, that it's insane how bad the Rider organization is right now. I won't go into some of the stories I've heard, but it's bad. Like, they have to clean house top to bottom behind the scenes. I'm not talking on the field. I'm talking behind the scenes. When you have a toxic culture at the top of your organization, I don't care if it's you're running a bank or you're running a manufacturing plant or a college or a football team. If it's a toxic environment, it's going to bleed down all the way down to your employees, in this case, your players.
Every single time that happens, right? Like, no matter what you do, it's going to bleed down. So that's wild to me that the Elks could be and are probably in a better position than than the Riders. But something else that stung a lot was the late game, the Western Final. The BC Lions lose as they walk into Winnipeg by a score of 24-13. Now, my thoughts on this was just we didn't show up.
We didn't. And, you know, I've had a couple days to kind of
lick your wounds and...
Well, not even lick my wounds. It's more kind of comprehend what happened, because obviously Winnipeg's a good team. There's no denying it. You and I have said it over and over. We might give the Smurf Mafia a hard time, which is the Winnipeg's fans.
But their team has always been number 1 or number 2 in the league, number 2 or number 3 in the league all year.
They have a good team, and they've had a good team for many years. What was surprising about that game is just how dominant their defense was. And top to bottom, it was like we didn't have an O-line. I mean, our run game all season has been suspect. It was
at best. Like,
yes, it was non-existent in the Western Final.
Yeah, I was going to say in the semifinals, I was going to say we had a better run game than I expected against the Stampeders.
Yes.
But again, as we talked about last week, if we played like we played against the Stampeders, there's no chance we win against the Bombers. And that's the feeling I had. And there was a lot of talk about how great Vernon Adams played, which no doubt he played great against the Stampeders.
Yes. Over 400 yards.
But was it also a case that the Stampeders made Vernon Adams Jr. look that good?
Well, when you're going up against a team that doesn't have the defense that Winnipeg has, your quarterback's going to look good. It's just 100%. That simple.
Yeah.
When you look at that, and I said it yesterday when I made, or maybe I made the post on Saturday night on my favorite CFL group on Facebook, CFL Chatter. Shout out to CFL Chatter. And I made the post and I said, it was a master class in how to run a defense. It really was.
It was.
I've not seen anything quite so dominant.
Vernon didn't have time to
10 sacks.
I think the official count was 9. I remember us talking about 10 sacks, but I saw a tweet, and I don't remember who it was from, saying that they broke a playoff record with 9.
If the Bombers go into the Grey Cup and play as well as they did defensively, they're going to win the Grey Cup, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately not because I dislike the team. I think that team deserves to win a Grey Cup. I don't want them to win a Grey Cup because their fans are fucking obnoxious.
See, and that's where I disagree. I think this is going to be the most defensively strong Grey Cup we've seen in a few years.
Yes.
Where if you get points, you might be getting field goals or defensive points.
Yes.
Because if the Alouettes, if I remember correctly, the Alouettes have won 7 straight.
They sacked us 9 times, and they only beat us by what, 8 points?
11
points?
Yeah.
They sacked us 9 times and only beat us by 11 points.
Now, and is that that
means their offense didn't do that well?
No. I mean, again, there was between the Lions and the Bombers scored less than the Alouettes did.
Yes.
The West final was a total score of 37. The Alouettes scored 38 against the best team we have seen in the regular season almost ever, in my lifetime anyways.
If I see one more Smurf Mafia go, Toronto's record was overrated because they played a lot of weak Eastern teams. Shut up. Just shut your mouth. You don't know what you're talking about.
If any Bomber fan, part of the Smurf Mafia, you lunatics, want to talk about ease of schedule, let's talk ease of schedule. Because how many games did you guys play on Thursday because your team wanted to play on Thursdays against teams that played Sunday, against teams that played Monday and had a short week? Let's talk about that.
Want to have a chat?
Let's talk, because your schedule strength is probably the weakest of them all. But we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about things that might make the Bombers look like they're not as strong as they are.
So my question to you now, Bombers go in and they lose again.
Someone's got to get fired. I'm sorry. Like,
can't win the big one.
Literally. Like, if you have an ultimate goal, no matter what your job is, for us podcasting, our goal is to get into the top 10 sports podcasts in Vancouver, and we get to number 11 4 years in a row, maybe we're doing something wrong.
Got to change something up.
Something's got to give. And also, I want to point out, the Bombers probably will not have Adam Bighill at their disposal.
No, and what receivers are going to be there?
He was carted off the sidelines, so he hobbled across when he was injured, and they carted him off the fields.
And he was seen after the game with a what are they? The walking boot in crutches, crutches. So
highly unlikely that he'll be playing. But
someone sent out a tweet saying that most likely he would be shocked. I think
it was Farhan. I think it was Farhan.
Yeah. I said he would be shocked if he played in the Grey Cup, which is sad because I have a soft spot for that guy.
Yeah. So, predictions. Blue Bombers, Alouettes, Sunday, November 19th at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern time. I know how to do math. It's fine. In Hamilton. Who do you got?
Cannot, with anything in me, cheer with the Smurf Mafia. Can't do it. Now, if somebody put a gun to my head and I had to make a bet, I'd probably put it in Winnipeg. But I'm hoping for Montreal, dude. I'm going to pick Montreal with a grin.
I believe the Bombers.
I'm bitter.
Vegas opened the Bombers at a 7.5 point spread,
which is huge.
And if I'm the Alouettes, if I'm a coach, I'm a player, I'm printing that off. I'm printing that off and I'm posting it in the room and saying, yeah, they said what was this point differential against Toronto? 11.5, I think was the odds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a 3-point game at best. If both defenses play the same way that they played in the East and West final.
Yeah. I'm taking Montreal.
I just think, like, I wanna go against you on this one because then I have some sort of skin in the game.
But then you have to cheer with the Smurf Mafia.
I can't do it. I can't. My betting logic says money line take the Bombers, point spread take the Alouettes, and that's how I'm going to leave that. Give me the points and give me the Alouettes.
We're both cheering for the Alouettes. Come on now.
Yeah, we really are. But with that said, is there anything else you want to touch on this week? Is there anything we didn't talk about that we wanted to? Because, again, normally I have the rundown in front of me, but I've got nothing today.
Folks, next week will be better. I promise.
I make no guarantees that anything will be better next week because we are who we are. Technology is going to break, and we'll always try to be here every Monday for your breakdown.
Shout out to Harman Dayal. Man, that was cool. I was so impressed with that guy.
If you do want to follow him, you can, again, read his articles at The Athletic. If you want to listen to him, Canucks Convo, and you can follow him at Harman Dayal 2 on the Twitter machine. Very, very good tweeter. He
does. He's quite active on Twitter. He's fun to watch.
Again, like you said, that's how he built his audience. So he knows what he's doing.
Ron brought up something that we didn't talk about.
What is something we didn't talk about?
The UBC Thunderbirds.
Yes, winning on the last play of the game.
Our good friend, Darren DuPont.
Had a beautiful call of the game, if you did not hear it.
We'll have to, maybe we'll dig that up. We can play it next week. We'll make a note of that, and we'll play it next week if we're allowed. I'll make sure we're allowed. He put it up on Twitter or something.
It's his voice. He can do whatever he wants with it. We might have different rules and regulations.
Yeah, I'll ask him. Maybe we'll have him on next week. We can talk about the season that was.
Well, yeah, because it'll be the Grey Cup will have taken place, as well as Hardy Cup. Jeez.
Yeah, well, the Hardy Cup is already done.
No, that was to get into the Hardy Cup.
Oh, that was to get into the Hardy Cup. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
One more week.
Yes.
But everyone.
Maybe we'll have him on next week. Maybe I'll
see if he's available. I know he's a busy man, so don't hold us to that.
No, I think I can make this happen. And then the following week we have another special guest announcement coming up. We won't announce it yet.
No, we can't. Technically we can't announce it yet, but we have something we're in the works for. We have a penciling in of a guest that I'm very
He's penciled us in, guys. He's penciled us in. It's freaking exciting. Can I say it?
No, you can't say it. But
please,
you beautifully. No, you can't say it. We can't say anything until we have things written in stone. We're in pencil. We're not even in pen yet. But you beautiful human beings, if you want to keep up to date, and when we get that answer in stone, we will probably post it on Twitter. We'll talk about it on the show the week prior, hopefully, if everything goes according to plan. And next week we will have maybe a guest, but we'll also have the winner of your Grey Cup decided. CFL season wrap up.
Yes.
The old man had a point. He was going to say something. Oh. If you want to follow us, you can follow us at HSP_pod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you want to follow the old man on Twitter or X, it is at Hughes64. You can follow me at JStreams, JEH Streams. Yeah, thank you so much for following or listening today. If you are following, or if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the follow button, hit the little bell so you never miss an alert when we post a video or go live. If you're listening on podcast form, please do give us a 5-star review. Share it with your friends. The best way you guys can help us out is share all of our pages, all of everything we do to your friends, because that is the best way for us to grow. And you beautiful human beings, we will see you next week. Mwah, and good night.